What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Josh Culler, and we got a super interesting topic for you today, and we got some all-stars on the show here. What's going on with this? Well, first of all, Aaron, you can't get away from us, man. Like, what is this, like the third podcast within the last 20 that we've had you on here? But we love him to death. So, Aaron, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I like the ratio. I mean, 3 out of 20 is pretty good. Pretty good odds for me.
That works too. And then we also have, of course, Tom Olson, president of Good Success, on the show with us today. And then we got a special surprise guest. I know we have Aaron on the show, but I'm sorry, Aaron. This is the main event.
That's the center of it all, right there.
Of course. So we got Jarrod Stotmeister, who is the sales manager for Olson Group, which, if you guys don't know, Good Success is sister companies with Olson Group, and buy and sell turnkeys or active turnkeys, which we're going to talk about that in just a second. We can't give away anything just yet, but yeah, absolutely. So we have Jarrod, and the reason why we have him on today is because we're going to be talking about financing for turnkey rentals, and we have Aaron Chapman on the line here to kind of you three are going to really hit the ball around here and pass it around. So we're going to go from there. But before we get into it, guys, last Friday, so it's Tuesday right now. Last Friday, we went live with Tom and talked about active turnkey. We revisited active turnkeys, and we gave away this book for free.
You're not giving away any more this time, are you?
I have a couple left. I have a couple left over from last week.
Yeah.
Aaron, I'll send you one. You're good.
He hand delivered me one.
Hand delivered. Okay, man.
I do have one. It's in with my laptop in my bag. I have it right there. I've actually gone probably about 12 pages in.
Awesome. Well, you got.
Among the other, I think, 4 books I'm in the middle of right now.
Of course. Awesome. So, guys, we are giving this book away for free. All you got to do is cover shipping costs. And we're going to have Kevin on links right now, and he's going to link that. Don't go off the podcast just yet. We're going to save it for the end, so you guys got to stay to the end in order to get the link. So
you're supposed to be sharing it right now.
Make sure
I share this.
Make sure you share this video, leave comments below. If you want one of these, comment below saying, I want an active turnkey book. Go back to the podcast last week. We talked all about active turnkey and financial freedom and how you can leverage real estate to have financial freedom. Talked about a little bit about the 5 wealth drivers. And so it was a fantastic podcast. Go back and listen to it. It will explain what is in this book and how you can get that. Kevin's going to have it linked below at the end of the stream. So if you're joining us Facebook Live, stay to the end. You guys will see it. Tom, do you want to talk about this? I mean, we had an entire podcast.
You have to go back and listen to the other podcast.
Okay, good. Yes, awesome.
Read the book.
Read the book. So
don't take the book unless you're going to read it.
There you go.
That's the stipulation. So it's absolutely free. You just got to pay for shipping costs to cover our butts with this. So you guys make it happen. We're going to have a link below, so make sure you check it out. And then the Good Success Mastermind, which Aaron is a part of, we have the next event November 8, 9, and 10. That's in Miami, Florida at the Embassy Suites. It's not on the beach, but Aaron, we are going to the beach. We're going to have an activity to the beach, so we'll be good. We'll be covered. So you guys, we're going to have a lot of fun down there. If you're interested in it, go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind to learn more about our community and how we can help flesh out opportunities, issues, challenges.
It looks like he's ready for the beach.
So he is ready for the beach.
I don't know how the hunting is on the beach, though. I have to gauge my locations by how good the hunting is, and so that's why I don't go to Hawaii. The Bahamas is pretty minimal on their ability to go hunt things.
Different kind of.
Aaron's like, I'm going the opposite way.
Can we go to the Northwoods?
Yeah, different kind of.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if you're talking Miami, you're not that far from the Everglades, and I know some great gator hunting.
That's
going
true.
on.
There you go.
That's true. We
did your beach thing
an Everglades excursion for that.
I think Aaron just got back from hunting. Did you just go hunting right before you got in this podcast?
Well, I set up some of my hunting areas while I was out. So I was gone to Missouri to my office out there. I was meeting up with the contractors, make sure things were going well on the other rehab we've got going there. I just closed on another place out in Missouri, which had another cabin on it that was period built in the early 1900s. So I was going over the process of, that was a really cool deal where I bought a house on 2.4 acres, I think it was. And one half of it is now rented out as a two bedroom, 2 bath. That's rented out for $800 a month. I picked it up for $88,000. The other half, the other 1.2 acres, has a cabin built in the early 1900s and a 1920s barn. And so now rehabbing those and turning those into vacation rentals. There's some really cool stuff going on out there, and they both have phenomenal amount of deer on it. So I'm putting up deer stands and getting prepped up for this winter because I don't be working from a deer stand.
Sure.
So we may be doing a podcast while I'm sitting up in the deer stand.
Take shots. Be like, wait, there's a deer.
I have my earphones, my earbuds in. You can talk like crazy. I won't be saying a damn word.
We lost Aaron. Where'd he go?
I'm right here. Oh, yeah, it's true. It'll be hard to blend in. I'll leave the steel hat on. You see the orange.
If Aaron mysteriously disappears off the live stream here, you guys know where he went. So
there you go.
We're going to leave it at that. But let's go ahead and get into the topic for today. So I don't know if you want to talk any more about the mastermind, maybe a little bit.
No, we're good. Let's go.
So we're going to have that linked below. Make sure you check it out. And if you guys are listening to the podcast and you're not watching the Facebook live video right now, we're talking about Aaron, and he's wearing a full-on camo suit here. And so that's why we asked him if he's going hunting. So you guys know.
I saw the time and like, oh crap, I don't have time to change my shirt.
Hey, it works.
I got two colors in my wardrobe. You go look in my closet. There's a bunch of black shirts and then camo shirts. That's it.
That's right. That's awesome.
We want some colors.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into the topic. So financing for turnkey rentals. I'm going to let you guys have it. I'll chime in with questions if I have any, but you guys go ahead. Whoever wants to kick it off.
Well, Aaron, working with turnkey buyers for me, I do it on a daily basis. The main question I know you're getting as a lender, and then I get as a seller, is did I miss the boat on turnkeys with the interest rates going up? And so a lot of guys are thinking of going a different direction with their funds and moving them somewhere else. And so how would you answer that question when they pose it to you as a lender?
Well, I think it's a matter of asking them what boat they believe they're going to be jumping in. A lot of times people are looking way backwards. It's amazing how many people call me up and they still think we're limited to 4 finance properties at 20% down, and then you got up at 25 for the remaining single families. And so looks like we have a little bit of a mute there, guys, but there's information that's changed over the years that it has evolved, and people are trying to catch up from way back. Today, they're still looking at last year's information or 2 years ago. So looking at today's information, there's still a great boat to climb aboard and be able to sail off in some really good fruitful waters and get some fishing done if, in fact, they are looking at it from the right angle. So when this question is asked, I'd like to actually illustrate a situation that I experienced. I had a client of mine purchasing 2 new build properties last year in Tennessee. They were on the same street, same floor plan, exact same cost, and they were the same proposed rents. So let's just, for purposes of our conversation here, let's say they were $100,000, putting 20% down on both of them. It was his first 2 properties. And this is back last year before the quantitative tightening happened. You guys are all familiar with that. We had the quantitative easing where the Fed dumped in upwards of $40 billion a month. If you go back and look at the New York Fed website, they have an actual schedule of what they put in. Over $40 billion a month went in at certain times. Well, supply and demand, we know how that works. The greater the supply, the lower the cost. The lower the supply and higher the demand, the higher the cost. It's like if Rembrandt went and did all production, it would be very cheap still, right? But everything's rare. Same thing with money when we use that for funding investments and funding really any financing with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed financing. The supply was overdone after 2007 to the point that it brought our rates very, very low to spur that demand. Well, now we got into 2017. We got the quantitative tightening happened where the Fed took their foot off the gas, stopped pouring in as much. If you look at the most recent scheduled buy-in from the Fed, it's $3.5 billion for the month. Look at the contrast. So we're seeing the supply shrinking. As that supply shrinks, demand will also shrink and it will equalize. So last year, just for argument's sake, he was closing on the first of those 2 properties that was to be finished in December. That was a 4.75 rate of interest. So he knew with his 20% down and his $5,500 in settlement charges, meaning closing costs for lender, title, appraisal, inspection, taxes, insurance, all those things, he was putting up 25.5, let's say. And then he was going to get a certain amount of cash flow after all that payment was made and received his $1,000 a month in income. Well, then we get to April, the following year, the second property is done. So when he signed his contracts, property number 2 hadn't even had ground broken yet. Well, at that point, he was looking at the interest rates with the quantitative tightening that occurred, shrinking of the supply. We saw interest rates drop a full percentage point. So for the purposes of this example, let's say it's 5.75. When you do the math on that, the actual difference in his cash flow, the monthly amount of money going to his pocket was about $50 a month, $600 a year. Most investors would say, I'm outlaying $25,500 here last year, and I'm making X. I outlay it again this year, literally same contract signed at the same time, and my income is $600 per year less. Of course, he would think, man, I think I missed the boat. I should not move forward. So he called me and we started talking about it. I directed him because my job is not to come up with the final decisions. It's to give ideas, to help them through the process. So I directed him, talk to your CPA, get a feel for where your last year's taxes are going to be and where you're probably headed for 2018. And determine with that tax bracket how much you're going to pay in additional taxes on the additional cash flow of property number one, right? So higher cash flow means higher taxes, right? You're paying that as ordinary income. So you're going to see a tax differential, what you're going to keep from one property over the other. So when he did that math at his 30% tax bracket on federal and his 10% tax bracket for his state, he determined that he was going to be somewhere in the range of about 100, if I remember correctly, it's like a 200 and it was just a little over $200. I don't have I'm actually talking on my calculator right now. Right? So you can do the quick math on that. So he ran that. So there was a difference there because even though you pulled in 600 more, you're going to take a bigger chunk of that and hand it off, right? So now let's get to the point that the other one had a drop in cash flow because of the fact he had a raise in interest. The interest went up by 1 full percentage point. Well, just for simple math, because I don't want to go into the complication of amortization schedules, 1% of 80,000 is $800. So if you take that 30% on the federal, 10% on the state, and you factor in the tax deduction, the higher deduction on property one versus property two versus property one, and you factor that in, there's another couple $100. It's actually over 200, is a greater amount. I think it was like 240 if I remember correctly. Well, when we were done with all of that, and he was done factoring all that in, the difference between the two when his taxes were done, just in those two segments, not including anything else, was about $3.50 a month, $3.55, something like that.
Wow.
So the goal here with him was to look at it from the perspective of the CEO of a business. Nobody calls a board meeting and say, hey guys, how do we get more cash to go into the cash register? Sure, they talk about that, but how do we keep what we're making? Because there's a lot of expenses out there. A lot of times they call big meetings to how do we trim things down? How do we cut some of our expenses? Well, one of the ways you cut that is to figure out how to play in the tax world, to play in a world that helps further the goals of our federal government. Our taxes, we shouldn't be running from taxes. That's how we have infrastructure. That's how we have the convenience of our lifestyle here in the U.S. Otherwise, we'd still be taking wagons across dirt trails, right? Mm-hmm. But us as investors are also capitalizing on the opportunity to take our tax dollars and rather than handing it to a big governing entity to determine where to go, we're determining where to take it. We're taking it to housing. We're taking it to jobs. We're putting it into places that we are choosing to use that same money for. So look at investing in real estate, even in a higher interest rate market, as an opportunity to have more freedom with your tax dollars. Rather than having somebody else decide what to do with it, we get to decide. It's kind of awesome to decide to take our tax money and put it into something else, and then it literally helps us down the road to create a better future for us and for our children and for those around us, and actually create freedom for people all around the country.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron, tell me, how long have you been doing this?
Since 1997.
Okay, so since 1997, so you've got
22 years.
22 years doing this.
I know that one.
And so
really coming up on 22?
But I just
well, I'm 25. I was born in 93.
I'm laughing.
Remember that guy.
I'm laughing inside because I just heard you say 5.2 is high interest rate. So I think I think the other part of this whole equation is that like not only to look at what interest rates were a year ago, but where are they going to be in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now? So you can play that on both sides of the coin. I mean, what have been the average interest rates for investors over the 22 years that you've been doing turnkey rental, or you've been doing investor loans?
They've been in the high sixes on the average.
Right.
Probably,
So like
well,
anything.
I would say the low sevens, because there are plenty of times that they were above 8 and 9%.
So anything above 6, I mean, anything below 6, I would say would be like a smoking deal. And I guess what I think to myself is, holy crap, I need to get in this market as fast as I can before, if I'm thinking that way. So if I'm going to take the other end of the coin and I'm looking at the cash flow as this is what my driver is to get into real estate, I should be thinking, in my opinion, like I want to get in this before like they're 8 or 9% again. Because like that's that direction we're heading. I mean, I just read another article this week that says they're going to probably raise again here soon. So, I mean, it doesn't matter which way you look at it. I think it's not really, there's not a bad time to buy real estate as long as you can get a good property in a good area that's going to rent, and the renter market's going to continue. There's a reason why there's $10 billion worth of hedge fund money. What's that?
It's going to do more than just continue. The renter market is going to grow. It has to
Exactly.
grow.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Inflation and interest rates going up. The beautiful part of interest rates going up is it's getting a lot of other people out of the mix that don't have any business being there. It's calling out the people who are taking the simple road. This is where people think. To your point, the person that runs their own real estate investment business, which is every investor, you're running a real estate investment firm, the property is what makes sense. It's not the loan. It's not, well, there's two things. There's the property and the people you bring together to help you. That's what gets it done, right?
We just had this conversation this morning with me and Jarrod.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get the biggest piece of crap property, but it'll stay rented because you have an awesome group of people working with you on it, and you'll cash flow because you chose that property. I'd have good bones, I'd have a good foundation, I'd have a good roof and good mechanicals. You have that, and it's someplace that people will demand to rent, especially I know your B+ housing seems to be the one that's like the workhorse of our industry. That's the one that's always got somebody in it, because people are always going downward in income, right? Inflation is ensuring that people are losing money every year. Their dollar value shrinks every year. If we want to even be gracious to inflation, say it's only 5%, literally at 5% inflation, your loan is being paid off by itself before you even make the payment to the bank. Because over time, you're paying the payment set today, even if it's at 6%, it's set right now. But inflation is deflating that dollar going forward as you're raising your rent because of inflation, and your deflated dollar is actually being paid on yesterday's value.
Yes.
Just that concept alone, who cares what happens with interest rates? Lock it in for 30 years and then give it a couple years, and you'll be paying it with something that's worth percentages, a double-digit percentages less in a handful of years.
Yeah, I mean, the real ROI or the real return on investment for a rental property doesn't even, in my opinion, doesn't even start kicking in until year 5, year 6, year 7, when you see the amortization schedule really start boosting up your wealth and understanding that it's not just, and I think the people that have the short-term mindset of just how much am I going to make per month right now as soon as I close on this deal, they have to open up their head to like, why are they buying this whole deal in the first place? It's not the deal that makes you wealthy. It's the deal after the deal. And sometimes it's the deal after the deal after the deal that really creates the wealth in this nation with real estate. I think there's one more interesting thing to point out, Aaron. With interest rates rising, it is definitely, in my opinion, the rental market, I don't think investors should stop a beat. I really don't. If you're buying under $150,000, I think those rental, you should just keep buying those and buying those, because I don't think that we're going to see, we may have a period of time where there are no properties in the United States under $150,000. And I think that might be coming sooner rather than later with interest rates rising. And in my opinion, they could hit 6-7% over the next couple of years. You don't know. I'm not promising that. I don't have a crystal ball. But what's that going to do to your $300,000 to $500,000 house points?
It's going to, I think, force them to decline in their price a little bit.
Yep.
As you raise those rates, you're going to be pushing those price points down. You think about that. In fact, we talked about this, I think, the last mastermind. where we're going to be running into a lot of interesting things with the housing market going forward. These larger houses, 300,000 price points, these 4, and 5,000 square foot homes, especially with people that are, their kids are leaving, right? They really don't have any reason to have that big of a house.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of made sense when you had 5 kids in the home. Now we got the baby boomers that are still living in these homes, but their affordability is shrinking quickly.
Right.
I don't know, it's going to be an interesting thing to see.
So if you're locked in those rates, you might be fine. But builders, like if you look at you look at what builders are building, the single most buildable house right now by new construction, if you look at all the sectors, like under 100,000, 100 to 200,000, 200 to 300, 300 to 400, they're building more houses in that $300,000 to $400,000 range than any other range. And what's going to happen, in my opinion, is those will become less affordable. I mean, it's obvious, which may happen. Like people will get foreclosed upon in those areas, and those ones might shrink in value. But what I think is very interesting, this is opposite of 2008. So 2008, what happened to interest rates? They kept going down in 2008. If we do have some kind of economic change here, and maybe we do have a little bit of a dip in the economy, we're in the opposite position this time. As rates are rising, in my opinion, that does two things. It shrinks that gap between what people are really living in. So like instead of everybody living in the $300,000 house, in my opinion, where the market's at and where people really should be looking at is the affordable housing rate. You know, those houses now that are $30,000 to $100,000 that are in areas that there's no reason why they should be $30,000 to $40,000 or $30,000 to $100,000. In my opinion, those houses are either going to at least keep those values, or they're going to raise in value, especially if there's a reason for those areas or those metropolitan areas for them to not, in my opinion, like right here in Gary, Indiana, there's no reason why those houses are that cheap. And that's why I believe that these houses that I'm picking up right now for all in under $40,000 will be worth $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 because people still have to have a place to live. And I also think that makes an interesting point for the lending side. I think the banks and the lending people will start going and start looking at those $50,000, $60,000 loans more seriously, because now with a higher interest rate, what does that do to the lender? They make more money, and it makes a little bit more sense for them to do those $50,000, $60,000 rates, or $50,000, $60,000 loans. Any comments on that, or?
Well, I did like your thought process there, as you pointed out. The affordability is definitely going to be stressed very heavily in those larger homes. Therefore, forcing more people towards the lower priced homes, bringing those values up because of demand. Again, supply and demand.
Yep.
And supply, like you said, we're not adding supply very much in those ranges. You know,
right.
two bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, we're not adding a ton of that supply. The supply is all 5+ bedrooms. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to have is people are going to start digging in and start trying to find happiness in what they have, instead of looking for the next step. What's the next big ass house I got to have? What's the next this? What's the next that? Because you've got an interest rate, what they locked in a year ago or 2 years ago on that 5,000 square foot home. They're going to ride that sucker into the grave. They're not going to try and upgrade at 7% or 6% or whatever it might be. So that's going to change the dynamic on how things go quite a bit. You're talking about such a long run with such ridiculously low rates, and how many people will be out of the home buying market, and how many of those homes will not be hitting the market. It's going to be forcing a lot of people, especially with, we're talking inflation and wage decreases, and compared to what the cost of living is. Our lower income housing, those 3-bedroom, 2-bath are going to be, in my opinion, a very, very, very hot commodity that will continue to grow in value over the time.
So who should be buying rentals right now, Aaron?
Everybody everybody can wrap their mind around the concept. I think if you cannot wrap your mind around it, you shouldn't be getting in it. Period. Because I think that they need to understand that when they step into this, the first few, they're stepping into one of the more miserable experiences of their life. Mm-hmm. I get that in your mind, you have built this euphoria of, I'm going to close on rental homes and I'm going to become this rental god here within the next year. It doesn't happen that way, guys. Nothing of value happens without you bleeding a little bit. And when you call me, I'm going to explain to you exactly how much you're going to bleed, and that this is a two-way deal. I mean, even though we're going to be doing all the heavy lifting with my team to get the loans done, it doesn't change it. We need some input from the person borrowing the money. It's like I always use the analogy of Chipotle when I talk about my business and how it's run. because I stood in line at Chipotle and I watched one operate before the E. coli situation or whatever that situation was. Counted 11 heads behind the counter building that burrito. But one of the things that I also didn't take into account at the time was it was very well structured that the input from the buyer of the burrito had to be there to actually successfully move that along, right? I don't care how many people you put behind the counter. If you had poor input and the person couldn't decide that day, man, am I into chicken? Am I into barbacoa? Am I into steak today? What do I want? If they stood there and stared at that for a long enough time, you bogged down the whole process. It's no longer efficient. So that was one thing that I missed. And it's taken me years, literally, this is 4 years later, like, I need to actually change the person coming in the door and asking for that burrito. Know ahead of time what you're going to be prepping and giving and feedback, giving back to my group so they can be efficient in that. I recently had a couple of deals where people call me up and say, what's going on? Why is this going on? I was like, I can't get what I need. I have been begging. I have been pleading. We have sent emails, calls, you name it, and it's not coming. And it's because the individual had retired and has a crap ton of money, and they figure, hey, here's one bank statement. You could lend on that, right? That way. Those rules changed 10 years ago, right? But now, because of these experiences, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, right? My bad judgment was setting up the system for them, but not helping them to understand the input that they need to give back. So a person jumping into this needs to understand all facets of what they're getting into. Spend some time digging in, and don't think that just because you're the one coming inside the store that it's all about you. There's other people who need to be able to have what they need to make you successful. All of us need to be working together to make that one person successful.
No, it's true. On my end, as the seller, it's amazing. We have heard so many times about, the lending process, how horrible. It's the worst thing ever.
Not with
it's
Aaron.
really, no, it's really not.
It's
right.
all the other lenders.
Exactly. Well, it's really
It's miserable as hell. And you guys get back with too, because we put you through the misery as giving us the paperwork, right? What are you doing to me? I got to read the damn thing, and I hate reading paper. So you're getting back at work.
Well, it goes with the point, though. I mean, because they say that, but oftentimes they are the issue and why it takes so long. It's not the lender or the seller, whatever involvement may be, but it's that expectation that they should just be able to, sit back and, let everyone take over for them when they are involved. At that point, they are an investor. So they have to be involved in some point in the process. I do have another question for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that they have that kind of trust in us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Absolutely.
If they're working with Aaron, they're the problem.
course.
But if they're working with another lender, it's the lender's problem. Well, it's the lender's fault.
Given. One question. Last week I had a guy reach out. I connected him with you. But he has his 20 Fannies, his 20 Fannie Mae loans. And I know you've been working on something.
Fannies, you definitely have to qualify that.
So right, he has their 10 Fannie loans. He has his wife has 10. So they have their max amount of Fannie Mae loans. And so he reached out to me, asked me, hey, what can we do? I connected him with you. What would you tell somebody who asks you about that situation and what their next step would be?
Well, we need to go into, and if it's one, it may or may not be one of my clients. We need to get in and dig deep into what they do have. Sometimes you consolidate some of them and make them continue to cash, but also be able to open up some of those other slots because they got somebody paid down. Once you reach 20, you may have had some punch in quite heavy. So you consolidate them together. And that's not a cross-collateralization. That's paying off one and putting the liens against another one that has more equity. There's also, I have been seeing some things that we're testing it out. Tom and I are actually testing this out. And I have an associate that reached out to me that they have put together a 30-year fixed, 20% down deal that is different than all the ones we've been hearing about. And it seems to be a lot more aggressive. And so I'm checking that out to see exactly how viable it is. And if that's something we can help people direct them to as another source to be able to go and continue to expand. In a commercial style world, but a 30-year fixed commercial is pretty sexy. So that's what we're looking at in great detail. And once we're done really understanding its capability, I might bring that individual on a podcast and help let them blow their horn a little bit. And I will continue to be a cheerleader for that, if in fact is what they claim it to be.
Awesome. Cool. It's good stuff. Cool.
Anything else we want to talk about?
I think Aaron covered a good chunk of it. What do you think?
Absolutely.
I think so. I just keep looking at Aaron's outfit, wondering when he's going to go hunting. I think he's going to see a deer behind him or something. And just...
I'm itching to, I actually got my safe right here too, if you can see. So I can reach and go to work, man. One of these days, though, that's going to be kind of part of my process is bringing people out to those, to the hills of the Ozarks, help them get their vision right, help them get their business plan right. And then we're going to go freaking hunting during hunting season, right? You can't just, send somebody out there going crazy with firearms or a bow. But there's going to be some opportunity to get people out there and enjoy the places that I really like to go and see what it's like to be able to just enjoy what God's given us. Mm-hmm. And then also be able to help develop your mind a little more while we're at it. Something that I read this morning, and I want people, I've been really big into how a person tunes their mind and how they focus their mind and not allow their mind to feed the wrong thing, right? It's something I read this morning in a book. It was Master Key System by Charles Hammel. And it said in there that you cannot plant the seeds of one and expect the fruits of another. Mm-hmm. So we really need those who we work with to start tuning their minds properly for that future instead of expecting it to be so brutal and nasty. Like you guys said, everybody says the lending piece is the worst. Well, we already know that. So why exacerbate it by getting your mind all prepped up to make it suck? And you're looking for everything that sucks about it. Mm-hmm. I'm just as bad about that by telling everybody, you're going through a very miserable experience. To get them to think that it's worse than it really is, then we get it done. If they follow along, then it's really not that difficult. It's not that not as bad as their mind conjures it up. But we are really we are creatures of what we have created. Our external appearance is all created by our internal considerations. So get your thoughts right as you're coming into this. Be prepared to decide what it is you want the end result to be. Think positively on that, and let us help you find that end result. Don't just think, hey, I just want to become an investor, and it's all going to be lemonade and brownies without any sort of idea of what you're looking for.
That's awesome. Yes. I was going to ask for one more piece of advice for turnkey buyers, and you just covered it, so we don't need to ask that.
I was going to ask how to eliminate them being the bottleneck.
Yeah. So we do have one more announcement, Josh.
What?
And this is kind of to the end. Normally we talk about the Community Go-Giver event at the beginning of our podcast. Yeah. But we didn't this time. But we actually we have a confirmed guest that's going to be speaking at the Community Go-Giver event.
Who might this be? Oh boy.
Aaron Chapman.
So if you haven't had enough of him yet, right? 3 podcasts.
If you'd like to be able to meet him in person, shake his hand, get a picture with him, and makes you touch the beard real good.
He loves it.
He likes it. So
it bites, so I would be careful.
He bites.
I had to subdue it because it was choking people at the last event.
Yes. So we will have some networking time if you want to be able to sit down face to face and maybe be able to talk to Aaron, but also listen to him talk about his whole philosophy, and maybe he'll talk about his giving speech that he's talking about doing.
We've had a podcast with him on gratitude.
There you go. So on TED Talks that we're working on right now as well. So I'm really pleased to announce that, and I'm glad that he's going to be with us.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. So Aaron, somebody wants to get a hold of you. How are they going to do it?
AaronBChapman.com is the best place to go. I don't know that it'll ever change. I might add to it, but that will always be directed to me. Then also, if they want to look me up on the NMLS website, which is a nationwide mortgage licensing system website, that has, then go to the consumer division, type in my ID, 267844, that tells them what states I'm licensed in, tells them at least enough history there, that I do what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff. Kevin's going to link it below, so you guys check it out if you are interested in connecting with Aaron. AaronBChapman.com. You guys can connect with him there. So,
and just before we go, if out of all the people that I've ever dealt with, and I've dealt with a lot of different people in lending, in my opinion, Aaron is the best. His company takes care of you, knows exactly what they're doing. If he tells you he can do the deal, he can do the deal. So I just wanted to give at least one more endorsement. Absolutely. I know he's on the podcast, and that's probably why we put him on the podcast. But in case you were wondering, I highly recommend Aaron.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that. The reason I'm as good as I am is I got one ridiculously awesome staff. I mean, they are the wizards behind the curtain. I am the smoke, mirrors, and BS.
A lot of that.
The main reason we're able to continue to really make sure these deals get done, the person who sets up the pre-calls, who does the pre-calls, she's got 36 years experience.
Wow.
I put the absolute best at the front end, not as your processor on the tail end. She may be a slight bottleneck in the sense that she deals with every single transaction. We do nearly 700 a year, but she also ensures that all of it's there. And if there's something that goes wrong or awry, it's because something we didn't have and they hid from us most of the time. Or circumstances change dramatically. So we appreciate you guys' trust. Thank you again for letting me on and allowing me to occupy your stage at the Community Go-Giver event.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try not to stand up there and just distract people with stupid jokes.
Oh,
That's Jared's job.
that's right. That's what I do. Fill that time, that block.
Awesome. So you guys can actually go check out. We have pre-sale tickets for the Community Go-Giver event. Kevin's going to link it below, communitygogiver.com. They're on sale already. We're still putting together the official lineup, so it's not 100% together yet. I know Tom's been working on that. Like we said, we have Aaron that's confirmed to come speak at that, so we're excited. We have a few more announcements coming up of people that are confirmed. So you guys be on the lookout for that, and you can go to communitygogiver.com to purchase the tickets already. So that is going to do it for today's episode. But we have one more thing before we go. The Active Turnkey book. So Kevin is going to have a link right now. He's going to link it where you guys can actually go. So you're going to click the link, and it's going to take you to another page. All you got to do is pay for the shipping, and you get the book for free. It is totally worth, like, the shipping cost is absolutely minimal.
There's some pictures in this book.
Some great stuff. I don't think there's
some handsome pictures in this book.
Yep.
So you got, it's a picture book.
It's not really. It's a picture book. There's pop-ups. It's
They could have they could have colored in a Tom Olson.
right.
A success, Active Turnkey coloring book.
Nice.
Awesome. So you guys can go pick that up. It is free. Just cover the shipping cost. Again, Kevin's going to have that link below, so make sure you go check that out. Don't miss that opportunity. And then the Good Success Mastermind. Again, we said Aaron is a part of that mastermind community. Goodsuccess.com/mastermind. You guys can go check that out. It's going to be linked in the description below. Anything else to add, guys, before we jump off here? It's been a great educational podcast. So in the words of Tom Olson, be a conduit, not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Work to have to give. There you go. All right, Aaron, thanks for being on. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
See you, buddy.
See you guys.